On behalf of Indian School of Public Policy, it's my pleasure to welcome you all to the book launch of Policy Brief on the review of National Urban Transport Policy.
To be part of this leading this whole initiative, because not only does it bring in the experience that was there in 2006 in drafting it, but also what all that has happened over here since then. We'll talk more about it, so I won't get into the details about this. But I just want to spend a little time talking about the ISPP Center for Urban Transitions, something that we started, which OP sort of is leading. And our aim is really to look at how do we sort of promote cities as engines of economic growth, looking at the role of Tier 2 and Tier 3 cities in this process, looking at capacity building, etc. Where our team, which is a small team over here, which is different from what you see with a lot of other organizations, is we're purely focused on how do we have recommendations that will work, that are implementable. And the way the team goes about it is holding a lot of consultations with people who are in the industry and who are connected in civil society and government to be able to come up with solutions that will work in reality and are applicable.
So our primary mission is to democratize public policy, education and engagement, basically to bring the public back into public policy, right? And we run several programs. I'll talk about them briefly, but the main program that we run is Policy, Design and Management, which is a one-year full-time program that we run. Quite rigorous because it is a one-year program instead of two-year programs, which are normally the case in masters. But it does do the job. We also have a partnership with the Harris School of Public Policy at U Chicago. Like the U Chicago program, we are also trying to focus a lot more on evidence in public policy, evidence-based public policy, right? And thereby brings some of the conversations around statistics, data visualization, and all of that to the forefront. Other key things we do is executive programs. These are the short-term training programs, one of which is Lok Niti. So Lok Niti is a 4-month sort of hybrid program. We meet twice on the campus in the beginning and at the end, and the rest of the coursework is done online. There are live lectures by very renowned faculty who engage with them online. There are other sort of training programs that we run. Some of them are run with the Association of PAFI, the Public Affairs Forum of India. We also have a partnership in the Karma Yogi platform. Dr. Agarwal also has his talk on policy communication, one of the most widely watched program on the platform. We also designed some bespoke programs as per request. We have done few of them for Tata and Tata Circuit.
I think before we start the discussion, I think it's important for us to better understand what's there in the NUTP revision that Dr. Agarwal has led. And it would be interesting for us to first hear from him, and then probably we'll break into a panel discussion. So I will request Dr. Agarwal if you could kindly present the key findings of the report.
What I want to do is quickly, the policy was framed in 2006, almost 20 years. April 2006 is when it was adopted. It's been approximately almost 20 years to the date. And any policy, I think, needs to be reviewed at the end of 20 years, whether it's been good, not good, what improvements. It's not meant to be a criticism. I was the person who sort of put it together, so I won't criticize something that I have put together. The crisis then was 90 million registered vehicles. 90 million registered vehicles in the country. 1.34 lakh crores was our oil import bill. 290 deaths per day on the roads. And 101 micrograms per cubic meter was the PM 2.5 average level against a standard of only 40 micrograms per cubic meter. This was the crisis. All of this was actually caused by motorization. All of these are symptoms. They are not the problem. They are the symptoms. The core problem was motorization. If you look at motorization, the core objective of the NUTP was how do you slow down this motorization? Because this is the root cause. How do you slow it down? And it is in this context that the key recommendation was shift from personal vehicles to public transport. That was, in very simple terms, what was the objective of that policy, and that's why I said invest in public transport and non-motorized modes rather than in road expansion. Invest in integrated land use and transport planning. They should not be done separately, they should be done as an integrated planning exercise. We looked at innovative financing. The public budget cannot keep supporting everything. There needs to be innovative financing to bring in other modes of finance, particularly looking at the private sector for operations. Then there was also a thing about cleaner fuel and vehicle technologies. Climate change was not such a big issue then. Air pollution was not such a big issue then as it has become now. So cleaner transport was something that was mentioned too briefly. One of the recommendations was introduction of premium buses, not just the standard quality buses, but have some premium buses which would be attractive enough for people who can afford a personal motor vehicle. They would probably shift to that. And I know that personally, living in Vasant Kunj, going to Udyog Bhavan, at that time I had only a two-wheeler, but Delhi had chartered buses. And I preferred this chartered bus to my two-wheeler. Right? Today those chartered buses are not there anymore. So that's what the idea was, premium buses. They give you a better service, but charges you a lot more. Something that you can afford, but you're happy to take. And then setting up what is called the Urban Metropolitan Transport Authorities, or UMTAs, so that there could be some integration between different modes. In many cities today, you have multiple modes of transport, but these agencies don't talk to each other. Unless someone like Mr. D.S. Mishra calls them together, baat karo. Otherwise, they don't talk to each other. And finally, there was a lot of emphasis in that policy on building capacity, because urban transport was a fairly new subject at that point of time. It actually became a part of the allocation of business rules only in 1986. So it was a fairly new subject, and the feeling was that new capacities needed to be built up. So this was the background and what was recommended in the policy. The key question now, 20 years down the line, and a normal question that one should ask about any policy is, has it achieved its objectives? This is the question we are trying to answer and see where were the gaps, if at all, and what can be done going forward. This is the objective of this whole work. So basically the summary of all that, what we are recommending is you need to look at an updated policy. Need to come up with an updated policy, recognizing what has happened in the last 20 years and what this updated policy should try to incorporate are some of the suggestions that we are giving here. Is emphasize an integrated ecosystem, not standalone projects. Second, emphasize an informed alternatives analysis. Alternatives analysis is when you're building any kind of a mass transit system, what kind of system should you build? It should be an informed alternatives analysis. Look at different alternatives, see what is the best fit for that area, see what is the best fit even for, say, 10 years hence. Some projections, but come up with that alternatives analysis and not wish away everything else in one line. Third is a stronger attention to buses. Here I would make a strong pitch for premium buses to also be thought of as part of bus transport. Not just the standard buses we see. I think today in Delhi, if you're going to have double the number of buses, the number of passengers is not going to go up. You're going to see the same number of buses, passengers divided over a larger number of buses. Because what the passengers who will shift are looking for a quality that they are not getting from today's service. That's why premium buses, I think, are a very important segment of our thinking going ahead. Then there needs to be a deeper consideration of IPT and paratransit. The Niti Aayog has set up a committee recently to look at this. I think IPT and paratransit need much more consideration than was there in the 2006 policy. Similarly, a much deeper consideration of parking issues is a far more serious problem than it was then. Then a deeper consideration of urban freight issues, particularly the delivery systems. These were not there then. Today it needs much more consideration. How do we deal with them? What kind of policies do we need to optimize them? A deeper consideration of the smaller and emerging cities. These are becoming extremely important. Deeper consideration of environmental issues, climate change issues, which means cleaner transport systems. A stronger emphasis on innovative financing. We have to start limiting public budget subsidies. We cannot sustain through the public budget. Finally, electric vehicles really need a step up. We need to do something more than what we've been doing so far. Much greater emphasis on capacity building. And the last thing I would say is a strong emphasis on better data and better data analysis. A lot of decisions getting taken are on perceptions. That's not the best way to do it. You need much better data, and data collection should happen in a systematic manner on a regular basis. So with this, our suggestion is really set up an expert committee to draft a new National Urban Transport Policy for 2026. Some of what needs to go into that policy is what we put down here. Thank you very much.
The bigger question is, has the National Urban Transport Policy delivered on some of these targets or some of the objectives against which the policy was framed? So that's one. So one is the content of the policy and second is the implementation of the policy. And we'll kind of dive more into detail as we move forward.
Some of the things which we did before, we were able to introduce the shift to CNG, which was actually approved by the government of Delhi's cabinet and rejected by the chief secretary and the LG over there. So that's why we had to wait for a year before the Supreme Court ordered it, and then it was done in 45 days. And maybe it was the right thing to do because politically it would have been contentious, but coming from the court, people agreed to bear up to the fact that there was no infrastructure for actually dispensing CNG. So, okay, fine enough. I think we accept that sometimes interference by worthy seniors is very, very good. Yes, okay, fine. But I think right now what we are looking out for is the switch to electrical vehicles. There is a genuine problem here that the number of charging stations are very, very few and again poor, like the CNG stations. More than that, what is really dependent is that we are looking out for buses. Okay, fine enough. The state seems to be making an investment into them. That's not enough. I think we've got to have, and the smaller buses now in Delhi, those green buses are much better than the blue buses which are there. Too large, too bulky, and we have very worthy colleagues over here who can give you much more on how to run DTC, how to run the nation with Niti Aayog, and okay. And we'll really touch upon the fact that we have a Ministry of Urban Development, but we've never ever had an urban policy in this country. Please remember that we've got excellent officers and all of us belong to a tribe. Yeah, I guess. But the fact is that yes, where do we start working and why don't we work out things? And there are a number of things which can happen in this country which are very good, but I think basically we haven't got round to the point of thinking that we have too much of government in this country. We have too much of bureaucracy, we have too much of government interference in this country. It's time to allow the private sector to come. We've gone from $200 billion economy in 1991 to something like 4.3 going towards 5 trillion, which is 25 times. I think that's the scope of the economy if we are able to touch it.
What does a person who wants to move in the city want? Let's think. Comfortable transportation, competitive price, low price. I don't like the word affordable because nobody is able to define what affordable is with rigor. It's largely used very loosely and opens a door for government intervention to distort things. But that aside, comfortable, convenient, reliable, right? Congestion free, you reach your destination, what you think is a good time. Why does that not happen? What have been the policy responses? The policy responses have been to congestion is to build more roads, more flyovers, and as he showed in the images, it has led to no solution. The city experimented with BRT, it didn't have an appetite, not because the concept was wrong, but because it's a city of the elites. The press is of elites, the political class, the bureaucracy, and everyone I remember I used to go to give lectures on the BRT, and in many places the waiters after the lecture, they would say, "Saab, isko mat isko badhaiye, ye hamare liye hai." They felt empowered that for the first time in the morphology of the city, there was a dedicated lane for the people. We are selfish, and I'm saying that we do not think, and our selfishness is so short-sighted. And the architect of BRT is sitting here. In fact, she can speak far better than I can about it. But we do not realize that our personal gain actually leads to a further loss for us. Had we waited and the bus transport system had improved in Delhi, people would have shifted.
The problem of urbanization in India is like Indian Railways. The guy who gets it doesn't want anybody else to get into the coach. So we are in urban, our life is getting disturbed. Let's stop that chap from UP or BR from coming into the city. You can't. You came in like that. He also wants to come in. She wants to come in. Plan for it. Plan for the transport needs of those people. What we are seeing actually is, if you want to solve these problems, technology is going to play a major role. And technology, on the pollution side, moving, the NITP reports actually summarized in 11 volumes and 1500 pages, but there are only 5 basic principles. Firstly, electrify all energy. That's one. Electrify all energy includes transport. 2, green your electricity, which means move from thermal to solar, wind, or nuclear, whatever. Third, behavior change. Behavior change means you reduce consumption. And the fourth would be circularity, which is reuse stuff. And the fifth would be, of course, you need money to do all this. And it's tons of money. We're talking about trillions of dollars.
Thank you, Amit. Happy World Environment Day, June 5th today, and it's a good occasion to have this discourse. And it's always going to be difficult to speak after Dr. Subrahmanyam, because he has covered pretty much what I was going to really touch on. As a citizen, how do I experience the city, the quality of life, the air that I breathe? I feel we need to put certain indicators to really put in the policy, like 3 indicators at least that we should think. One is the modal split in cities. Like, what is an optimal level of modal choices that we will do in tier 1, tier 2, tier 3 cities? I feel that is very, very important, when we can't generalize that 60% in Bangalore, is it enough as a public transport versus something in Lucknow or something in Bhubaneswar. We really need to understand that categorization related to urbanization. The second for me is the trip length. The trip length that we travel in a city is directly related to the urbanization of the city. The third, of course, is your congestion, which is basically how is your speed compared to your peak versus off-peak. How do we really design the city taking this into consideration as an indicator that how is my congestion in city and how do I really manage that? And of course, fourth is your fatality or crashes in city, because people are dying. And we have one of the worst 10% growth of crashes that are happening. Looking at the policy is one way, is how do we improve the delivery on ground in urban areas and in local areas. This is a big challenge, that if there is a way for the policy to really start thinking in that direction in terms of the implementation at local level, because that is what really will help the experience of citizens.
Good thing is India has become reasonably well off, that they can start thinking on these lines. They can afford multiple options, charges, this, that, etc. So I'm more hopeful that we will move in the right direction. Almost every city in the world has gone through this trough, and then it comes out of the trough. That's it. We have to go through the trough, because you have to have a pain point. It's only when you get a pain that you go to a doctor. So similarly, you have a pain point, you'll find a solution.
Good. How do we make sure that the next version of NUTP that comes out within the larger framework of national urbanization policy gets the teeth which leads to implementation? So with that, I'll hand it over to DMC to take the conversation forward and close the conversation formally. But again, a round of applause to the wonderful panelists and fantastic discussion.
Good evening to one and all present here. It's a privilege of the highest order to give this vote of thanks on behalf of ISPP Center for Urban Transitions. This evening has been, in the truest sense of the phrase, a meeting of minds.
We gathered this evening to reflect on 20 years of national urban transport policy. And what the policy brief lays before us is both a record and a reckoning. In 2006, India looked at its cities and reflected with a vision. Today, we have asked with equal honesty whether that vision was realized, where it fell short, and more importantly, what must come next. The quality of candor is itself a mark of institutional seriousness, and we are grateful to all who contributed to it.